Welcome to another In Conversation With on Breaking the Silence. This is the show where, for the newcomers, and there's been a lot of you, and thank you for subscribing and thank you for watching the channel. It means a lot to us. Um, this is a conversation, meaning that we have a guest and we talk about the subject matter of the paranormal and UFOs and non human intelligence and orbs in this case, because these things are all connected, in my opinion, and in many other people's opinion. As I adjust my seat, is it adjusted there? On this channel, so in our community. So I want to welcome Lyla Tracy to the show, who
Thank you, Steve.
lives in a beautiful, beautiful place um, up near the Nevada border, right near Tahoe.
Well, not quite up to Tahoe. I'm still in Nevada County, and we're
Right.
68 miles northeast of Sacramento. And I'm headed towards Tahoe, but not quite there.
Are you talking about the continental shift, or are you going to be actually moving there?
No, no. I'm stuck here. I
Okay.
just passed my 89th birthday last week, and this is where I'm intending to stay.
Congratulations. And you're still working.
I do. I do.
So you have a lot of
I work
purpose.
for a mining company part time.
Wow. And so where you live is incredible. You sent me a picture of it, and I think I have it somewhere. When I edit this, I'll put up the picture. Um, and if you have any more, you can send me. That'd be great, and I will edit those in as we're talking. But the creek is beautiful. I spent a lot of time up in Bernie, California, growing up with my grandmother up there. It was a little logging town in the middle of nowhere. We had Bernie Creek, and I just loved being in the forest and at high altitude and hearing the sound of the water, which you can hear all the time, pretty much from your back porch, because the creek is right there, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's the South Fork of the Yuba River, and right now it's moving right along. It's we have the snow
Wow.
melt.
Yeah.
With the warmer weather, we get quite a bit of snow melt, and it accelerates not only the speed of the river but the quantity of water that we get. And we have two small dams that feed this river, and they're bursting at the seams right now and letting us have quite a bit of water.
Wow. So I bet the frogs are pretty loud at night.
Oh, the frogs do. Well, I've got kind of a swamp over on my other side, and no, the critters around here. I have the bear and a lot of bear, and we have raccoons, lots of raccoons and possums, and the waterfowl, and I have otters. Just you name it,
Oh,
we've got
wow.
it. It's so
Owls? You have
pleasant. And
owls?
pardon.
You have owls too?
Oh boy, I have a lot of owls. I have hooty,
Okay.
well, I just call them hooty owls. I'm not quite sure the species, but we have owls. Um, and then, of course, I have my crop of orbs. I have three
Yes.
different varieties of orbs here.
And so you've had this going on for a long time now. And
Yes.
I know that we both have an equal friend in Lori. Um, and she's been there and she's experienced in person the things you are getting on video tape or videotape. Boy, that dates me. That you're getting on digital video with cameras you have all over your property. Um, but so it's one thing to get these objects on video, but it's another thing to have somebody there seeing these objects as they're going on video, which rules out, in my opinion, bugs. Too close to the camera, soft out of focus. The dust is the usual one that the skeptics are always on about. This dust, and yeah, in a lot of cases, when a camera is up close to dust and it's focused on something in the distance, you're going to get these orb-looking shapes. But your videos don't show any of that. Your videos show things that look like spiders but aren't, and it shows things that look like bent up floating cucumbers. I can't even begin to imagine what that is, and a whole bunch of amazing stuff. You've sent me some videos, and of course, as I'm talking here, I'm going to be flashing on the screen some of these videos. I imagine you also have still images because you sent me some of those as well.
Yes, yes, I
So when
did.
did this all start with you?
Um, it started about, I put up my first camera right around 2014, 2013, 2014, and it was a security camera, of course, but it had infrared capabilities. And at that point, that didn't matter to me. I didn't care. I just was making sure that I wasn't, being bothered by any people who are out in the forest wandering around.
Right.
And it was a security issue at that time. And when I would, and they were on a monitor, and on the monitor, I could capture the activity on sand disks, little memory disks,
Hmm.
and so I would review these memory disks, and they would actually play out on the monitor as well. And so I started seeing these odd uh, beach balls floating around. And sometimes they would morph into a different shape, or a different shape would morph into the ball. And I thought, oh, I'm getting camera artifacts or bugs, birds, bats, whatever, and dust. I felt dust too. I was extremely
Right.
critical, and because I was looking for trespass rather than any anomalous activity. And so consequently, that happened for quite a while, and it had my attention, Steve, but I had passed it off as being something other than what now I believe it was and
Hmm.
or is. And so anyway, that camera broke, the other cameras broke. This is over a period of time. And then came about 2016, and I had an occasion where I had some people here that didn't want to believe that this was private. And because it's so nice,
Yeah.
everybody wants to be here in camp. And
Right.
so I bought better cameras, and I bought four, I believe, and installed those. And again, they were on the little memory disks and on the monitor. And it was just so incredible the amount of activity I was getting. And I would go over there at night to see what was happening visually. And
Hmm.
of course, I couldn't see anything because this was infrared heat activated anomalies. So, but it doesn't, this phenomenon is a jokester. It
Uh-huh.
goes
Yes.
one way for a while, and then it tricks you and goes another direction. And it has a sense of humor. The one that I deal with more particularly is smart, knows me, tries to get my attention a lot of times. And I've only recently had some more activity that's caused me to realize I have to start paying more attention because I've been kind of skating doing other things. And but this anomalous activity, I have at this point identified three different species. There may be more, there probably is. Um, but anyway, the activity that I see the most often and pay the most attention to are my orbies, and I kind of generally call them all orbies.
Right.
Um, they just are, as I say, they're tricksters. And it's hard for me to find the descriptive words, the adjectives, because they don't really fall into a category that we humans use. It's difficult at times to describe what we're talking about. That's why it's good when people come here and actually see. Now, Lori Wagner actually had her camera up. She caught one inside my house.
In the
I have
house. Yeah.
video. It's in my house. And I have neglected to do that. I have not wanted to do that because though I'm not fearful of these guys, and I kind of look at them as friends, my house is my safety zone. My house is my comfort. I will watch
Right.
them happily outside, but I'm not
Mm.
keen on watching them in the house. However, I know that I do because I have seen them. And I've seen them visually and with infrared and with regular digital cameras during the daytime. I don't know how to figure that one out. It leaves me in the dust, but it's not always visible by infrared. They are always around here. In fact, I believe we're the interlopers. Um, these guys, I'm right, as I told you before, I'm right on a main Maloney's fault. I have gold mines that ring my property. I have gold right here. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm wealthy. I'm certainly not. But
Right.
this is gold country. And I have a lot of in situ quartz crystals, beautiful big clusters of clear quartz crystals. I'm not saying that they have an effect, but I do have them in place here, in
Do you have in the
placements.
house?
So I have, yes, I do have them in the house. I've been collecting quartz crystals since I was a tiny guy. Pardon?
I love big crystals. I really want to get some big ones.
Well, I have the big amethyst tower,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
then I have the quartz crystal, and I have quartz crystals from pretty much most of the world. I collect quartz crystals, have since I was really young. But anyway, getting back to the Orbeez, the main guys that I am mostly interested in and seem to show some sort of attachment to me, I have them springing up from the ground. Are not necessarily our ground. Our landscape is not their landscape, but they spring up. They sometimes have these funny sheets on. They emit bumblebees. These are sound activated cameras. You can actually hear the bees humming. You can hear the crickets. You can hear the frogs. You can hear the night birds. You can hear all sorts of ambient noise from these
Right.
cameras. And and so that's just about it. One time early on, I was determined this was nothing to do with psychic phenomena. I was absolutely positive that these were star people and that I had actual metal flying saucers. Well, I don't have.
Right.
This is up here.
Have you ever seen one? I mean, you're
Well, they made me one. I'll send you that video. The
okay.
silly
But I
guys,
mean,
they
yes,
made me a flying saucer and parked it in front of one of the cameras.
I'll be darned.
I know it's
Um,
sort of hard to grasp,
yeah,
but
it all is,
I
but we do.
yeah, and the fact that the main guys that I'm interested in, they have an agenda, and their main agenda is creating more orbs. Now, these are the large spider blobs that you will see crawling around and crawling up the tubes, and they will deposit orbs into the tubes like incubators. Now, how long they stay in there, I don't know, but you can
Wow.
see the baby orbs moving around in the tubes, and these guys replicating over and over and over and over again. That's their main agenda. That's what they do.
Huh. So, are you familiar with the phenomenon called rods?
Yes, well, very limitedly. Uh,
Yeah,
I I have seen them. Yes.
you've seen. I'm drawing a blank, and I will probably put the name up in this because I should remember. Roger Lear was friends with him. He was known. He was a photographer, filmmaker that went out and shot rods and got very good photography of them. And they appear to be some kind of living being um, that no one's talking about in the scientific community, but are clearly there. Now, there's been lots of speculation, of course, that those are also bugs, but they're like long tubes and they have like these fins that go down the sides of them and they undulate like this. And I was so curious about it that back in the 90s, I uh, I knew how to photograph them. I learned how to, and I would aim my camera over the top of the roof and kind of block the sun. So there's a real good highlight coming from the sun, but the direct sun is not in the camera's eye. And I would run the camera. And then I'd put the footage up on the screen and I'd go through it in slow motion. And by God, there they were. And they weren't birds and they weren't bugs and they were it's some kind of life form. And then I've had videos shown to me. I've even filmed things and looked at them later and saw small ones. They're bright. They're like your orbs, and they actually go into somebody's head and come back out again. And they're flying very
You
slowly, but they're
mentioned that, yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're and they're the same shape. And nobody's talking about it. Nobody uh, is investigating it scientifically in a way because of the stigma, I'm sure, and what it could mean to someone's career. But it's really kind of frustrating. So, do you think, as I'm starting to think, that your particular orbs are something related to some kind of life form that we're unaware of, or maybe somebody out there is, but they're not talking about it? And I don't know why they wouldn't talk about it because it's something alive in our atmosphere that's very interesting and also behaves as an intelligence. And it sounds to be different than the other orbs that people are reporting, that in some cases we feel are souls.
Well, I think you were describing what I've referred to as skyfish,
Right.
the rods that have
Yeah.
the appendages on either side.
Yeah.
And yes, I have those here. I also have regular rods that have no obvious appendages that are moving around just in the atmosphere. I feel that our atmosphere is sort of like the sea. It's full of all kinds of
Yeah. I think
activities
you're
that we
right.
can't see
Yeah.
that are in a different dimension or a different realm. And because we only see a very limited amount of the colored spectrum, and
That's right.
that limitation keeps us from seeing things that otherwise are our animals can see a lot more than we can see.
Oh, yes, they can because they
And
bark at them
they do indeed. They do
and
indeed.
follow them, and you can't
And
see them.
I have a situation that occurs when I forget to turn the cameras off. Sometimes in the morning, I don't get over to the cameras and turn the outside cameras and turn them off at early on in the morning. And if I accidentally and let them run during the day, a period will happen where a sun and a shade and a sun and a shade will cross in front of the cameras, and that situation, that sun and shade situation, allows the camera without infrared. The infrared is clicked off by this time. It will show the orbs, the orbies. It will show the tubes. It will show the spiders or the spider blobs, and it will show the floating orbs in pastel colors. I will send you some of those daytime videos.
Sure, I
Now,
wish you
why
would.
that occurs on a digital camera, I have absolutely no idea. They're supposed to be heat sensitive, but without the infrared, that's not what's causing them to come into view. It is the sun shade circumstance, and it only happens for a brief time. And
So
I just love to have somebody investigate this.
it's hard to get somebody. I mean, I'm not. I People want me to investigate. They want me to analyze their footage, and I'm really not qualified in the sense that my experience with the subject matter is very very vast. However, I'm just a filmmaker and I'm a visual effects artist, and yes, I know how to work with cameras and computer software related to uh, animation and editing and all those things, but I still don't think that qualifies me. And I'm sure many people listening will agree. It doesn't qualify me to be anywhere near close to being an expert on uh, analyzing digital imagery. I do know with UFOs, if I look at the footage, I know what to look for if it's faked. If, in other words, they've shot real footage and then they went in using Blender, the 3D program as that I use and a lot of people use, and they put and track a UFO in there, and they will try very hard to match the density, and the ISO and the sort of grainy effect of the low quality camera and make that object look like it's actually part it was actually shot in camera. But they always screw up. There's always a mess up somewhere and you can spot it. And I'm good at that.
Uh-huh.
But with the videos you have, someone on a different level needs to look at those. You know,
Could you
we used to.
recommend anyone?
No, I can't. And we used to have some really great people, and they've all passed away by now. So
Uh-huh.
I'm drawing a blank on the best of all. I just can't remember his name. Having a senior moment, but he was great. But there may be, and so if somebody's listening or watching this program when it runs, and you have the capability to do that and have an interest in this, please contact us, and we'll put you in touch with Lyla to take a close
Yeah.
look at her videos. Now, um, this stuff is not dust, and by this point in the show, we've been recording for 20 minutes. I have shown clips from the videos you sent me and any new ones you send me. But one of the ones that caught my attention was the most recent one you sent. It was just one, and it was of the glass table, and I could see the creek. Was that daytime?
No, it was around Christmas, and it was dark. It was a little after 4 o'clock. I live in a canyon here, so it gets
Right,
dark fast.
right.
And it was, as I say, around 4 o'clock, right after it got dark. But yes, you can see the white rocks showing through the water, and the river
Yeah,
is right below. I'm just 20 or 30 feet from the river. And in the wintertime, the river is low because they're holding the water back, from the
right,
feeder creeks and streams.
right. So how cold does it
Yeah.
get there at night?
Oh, gosh, we'll get down to, 10, 15 degrees. We
Okay,
don't
so
typically
go ahead.
we don't typically go below zero.
You don't
And
need to
surprisingly enough,
if those
the
are
river
bugs,
kind of holds a medium temperature here.
right, makes it more temperate. However, it does go
Yes, it
well
does.
below it does go well below 40 degrees at night.
Oh, wow, yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I
Well,
wrap my pipes outside, my faucets, because if I don't, I have frozen faucets and everything breaks and I have to redo plumbing. So, oh no, in the wintertime after the sun goes down, we hover right around, I don't know, in the mid 20s to high 20s.
so according to my research, insects in general, especially flying insects, don't operate above 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
No, not really. Not
And
really.
the other thing about insects, and somebody might correct me on this because I really don't know, and I'm never afraid to say I don't know something. It's there's no fault in that. If you don't know, you don't know. So you ask the question, and that's how you learn. But those are infrared cameras, and insects are cold blooded. And if it's really cold, I don't know why insects would show such how they would show up on infrared as it's so bright white and hot, and especially at temperatures below 40 degrees. For me, that kind of
Yes.
rules out insects completely. So,
Yeah.
and even spiders are in their little beds that they make out of Weber, just
Hmm.
hibernating at that temperature. So that rules that
Well,
out.
their
And
bodies. Go ahead.
no, I was just saying that rules that out, and also doesn't look in any of the shots that I've seen. I don't really detect looking at other objects in the frame that there's any wind going on.
Not
So
usually.
so
Um,
there's nothing being kicked up like leaves or something. And even then, would the leaves glow at an infrared camera? I don't know that they would. So
yeah.
yeah, so it's
Well, I don't mess with them. It's what you see is what there is, and
right.
they're here. Uh, Mostly they're friendly. Uh, I don't ever
Mostly,
fear them.
yeah, mostly. Do you mean that there's sometimes they haven't been friendly?
Well, some the other. It's hard to say. No, I have had some experiences where I've been a little bit nonplussed. Uh, with the guy over the glass table, that activity occurred only about 30 feet from me. And I watched it in real time, Steve. And I was in my late 70s at the time. And this may sound a little odd, but I watched that happen. I was working late for the company, the mining company, and I saw the activity on my monitor. It was adjacent to my computer screen. And so I watched it for almost 4 minutes out of a 10-minute video. And I was a bit nonplussed over it. I wasn't scared, but I was a little disposed. And so
Huh.
I thought, well, I don't know what that is. It's physically close to me. It's just out on my back deck. And so I got up. I know this sounds goofy, but I got up and went into the bathroom where I have a full mirror because I wanted to see myself. Not that I thought I died and had a stroke, but this was the only activity that I'd ever had like that.
Right.
And I was just kind of moderate about it. So I turned all my cameras off. I think I had 8 cameras going at that time. And I
Wow.
turned all my cameras off and I said, okay, that's going to be good for a little while. And,
Well, it
but
does look kind of like a ghost.
conversely speak, well, I don't know.
It looks like it to
Lori
me.
and
I've seen ghosts. I particularly with my grandfather, I saw ghosts that was glowing like that. I saw it first when we were out on our walk. There was a well in Marin County on old abandoned farmland, and one of those classic windmills for the wells, probably built there in the 1800s. And the story was is that this man had fallen down in the well and drowned, and but I didn't know about that, and I was walking with my grandfather down the frontage road, and I saw this shimmering. I can still see it so clearly. This shimmering outline of a person, a man. I'm pretty sure it was a man. And I said to my grandfather, "What is that?" And he looked at me and he said, "You can see that?" I said, "Yes, I can." And he told me the story, and we watched it for a while, and it shimmered and it went away, and it reminded me of some of the things that I'm seeing in your videos. So it kind of makes me wonder if in some instances that some of these things that you're seeing are spirits.
they very well could. This is an old mining community, and life and limb, uh, life was not considered very valuable in the earlier days in the 1800s.
No, no,
There
not
was
at all.
a lot of sad things going on. And I live, as you know, right on the river, right where the placer mining. I work for a company who we're underground a lot of the times. There's a difference between placer mining and hard rock mining. And
Right.
I'm a hard rock person. The placer mining occurred along the rivers where the gold had become separated from the matrix and the water had gravitationally settled it towards the bottom of the bedrock. And so the miners came along and they literally scooped up the nuggets from underneath all the other detritus, and that's how they found a lot of their gold. And but it was a rough life. There were no facilities. They were hungry. They lived out in the open. It's a rough country to live in, let me tell you, if you don't have facilities. And life in limb was really cheap, really cheap. Accidents happened all the time. They were moving huge 20-ton boulders. Um, the granite emplacement is above my house, probably another mile, where we have the granitics. Those have shed a lot of boulders down the river, and the river's brought them down through force. And so we have a lot of dangerous activity that occurred in those early days. They didn't have the motors to lift these big boulders, they had to do it by their own ingenuity.
Wow. Yeah,
And
I've always found that period of time in the mining and the mining towns fascinating. Mary and I have watched a lot of shows. There's young people who are actually very fascinated with the ghost towns of mining towns, and they will go. out there on four-wheel drive vehicles and find these towns, which somewhat, some of them are intact, and some of them, there's all that's left is a windmill, but the mines are still there, and the little
Sure.
graveyards are still there, and a lot of children died uh, in those towns. And I learned a lot about how hard the living was there, and especially in going into the hard rock and using dynamite to blow holes, in the side of mountains and chipping it all out and putting up beams to keep the thing from collapsing and going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper in the earth. That must have been frightening. I don't know how those people did it. I guess it was
Well,
the hoping for to get
Steve,
that gold.
they were hungry. They had no pension plan. They had no social security. They had no backup. If they didn't find gold or shoot a deer, they didn't eat or catch a
Yeah,
fish. And
yeah.
that's I live in a very small community. There's only over just I think 115 of us in this small community, and it was so total mining, and then it morphed into logging. And but it was tough in the early days. I first came here when I was 12 years old, when my dad bought the famous Red Ledge mine. And
Hmm.
my dad, as I told you, was a mining guy, and so I kind of grew up here and elsewhere, other mines. But my dad was tough. He was born in the 1800s. I was a late baby, and so I kind of learned how to get by, and that's how you did in the earlier days. But the amount of deaths and disfigurements and injuries that occurred here in the early days was just incredible. I have collected a lot of history, as my mother did before me, and it's so sad. Our cemetery, we still have a little cemetery here in Washington that has a lot of folks from the 1800s in it, and you'd be surprised how many babies and young children are in it.
Yeah, that did surprise me. So you potentially have a lot of restless spirits there, maybe ones that don't know they passed and they're clinging. But also you have a lot of quartz around you, a lot of
Oh, yeah.
granite. Is that true? And
Yep.
we have an understanding about quartz and granite and some of the properties that it has, especially when related to paranormal activity. Um, and then you combine that with all the restless spirits you have. I don't know that all that quartz and all those conditions uh, amplify what's going on where you live, but it seems very amplified. Do you have where you live in your community? Are other people there that friends and families? Are they seeing things too, but not really talking about it? They might share it with you, but are they aware that there's a
Yes,
feeling
they
there
are.
that's
Yes, they are.
wow.
Certain people are. Yes. Um, Folks know about my predilection with this subject.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a double edged sword, as you well know.
Yeah. Oh
Some
yeah.
people are very keen on it, and some people are very uh, distanced from it. They don't want to accept it. It doesn't fit into their lifestyle. They'd rather make fun of it than accept it,
Well,
and
that
that's
means
okay.
that. Do you think they're scared, and that's why they do that? That they're afraid that they
Sometimes, yeah,
afraid?
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I have friends who have security cameras in the community, and I've asked them from time to time about the activity. And yeah, they have Orbeez too. They don't know that. I've told them they look for critters like mountain lions, which we have, and bears, which
Yeah.
we
Oh
have
yeah.
in abundance, and they look for the actual nature. And but as far as the paranormal goes, some of them are okay with it, some of them are not. But we're right here. It's all over the place. And actually, I have seen a lot of what I have here online from other countries. This is not an unusual phenomenon.
So
The
do you
spider
have a
blobs.
channel online where you have videos up or not?
No, I do have a channel. I have not populated it. It's like you, Steve. I have another life, and I'm
Yes.
pretty
Oh yeah.
busy.
I
And
definitely do, which might
yeah,
surprise
and
people, but yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and
It's
So I
important.
still, work. I still work 3 to 4 hours a day for the mining company, and then I do consulting work in mining as well. And so I'm pretty busy, but that's primarily what keeps the wolf from the door. And as
Yes,
long as my head will allow me to do it, and I can still do it, okay, and I love it.
right.
And so um,
That's
my
wonderful.
interest in the Orbeez sometimes has to take a back seat, and I don't like to say that because they deserve a front row seat. There's
Yeah.
information here that I very strongly feel would answer some questions about the phenomenon, the general aspect of the phenomenon, if it were studied. And if someone who understood optics and spectrums, color spectrums, and the radiation effect from the different colors, if some
Yeah.
optical person would study them, I think they would find out a lot about what's going on.
Do you have any communication from them that you could share with us? Do you get a telepathic or otherwise?
Yes, I do. Yes, I
Oh, I
do.
would love to hear
I
about
have
that
had,
because that's very important.
um, as you know, my Orbeez make noise. I've sent you a couple of videos with noise on
Right.
them,
I need to
and
to
they have
boost those because I didn't notice the noise, but I didn't watch them, but maybe once or twice, and I need to look into that because there's a noise I hear all the time, and it changes all the time, and it may be similar.
well, I have different noises, um, and just recently, uh, my Orbeez want me to pay attention to this one area, and I have not done it. I've been busy doing some other important aspects and of my life, and so I've got to answer their call. But yes, my Orbeez let me know um, what's going on. I have to sit and think about it. Oftentimes, I get strong feelings about doing things, and well, I'll tell you what's recently happened. I
Sure, please do.
the Orbeez mess with my electronics. How they do it,
Oh,
I don't know,
well,
but
yeah,
they
that is
mess
a
with my
mystery.
electronics. And sometimes when they don't want me to see something, they'll turn my cameras off. And they'll turn them back on again eventually.
Do
But
you have a Gauss
they're kind
meter?
of, pardon?
Do you have a Gauss meter?
I don't know what that is.
Well, it detects electromagnetic fields
Oh,
and their
Lori
intensity.
has one. She brought it with her, I think, last time. But I don't have anything other than my cameras. That's all I
Yeah,
have.
because if
But
you have a spike and it takes your cameras out, but you can use that, you'll be able to see if the electromagnetic radiation is increased or decreased. And you'd be able to notice whether, did you ever notice when this happens that there is a temperature drop? It feels colder.
yeah, yeah, there is.
Okay.
Yeah, there is.
These all help me.
Well, I have tones. I have 3 or 4 tones on only a few of the videos, and the tones are covered by a layer of static. And I wanted to hire a sound person to be able to pull the static off and emphasize the tones so I could hear them more clearly. I have yet to find someone that I can hire to do that. Um, but yes, I do. I do hear noises. Recently, my Apple phone has started playing the same tones. I know that sounds strange because I don't have any
No.
connection between the Apple phone and my cameras. There's no
Right.
connection. But now my Apple phone sometimes fires up the same tones and it vibrates that I get from my cameras. And I don't know how that happens.
So do you get any messages from them? I mean, with my experience with what I call the visitors, I get messages and I get real simple one-liners a lot of times that um, have to do with, well, like more recently, I got, if you're seeking peace, you have to find it in yourself first.
Yes.
and a lot of them are about the environment as well. Do you get anything like
Yeah.
this? You do.
Um, Sometimes when I am in an in between sleep and wake time, I get messages like that. I try to tell you the truth, Steve. I try not to always go with them because I'm not sure whether they're real or not. You know,
Yeah, sure.
I question everything. I
Well, yeah,
question.
that's a good thing, and I understand it. It just, is this my mind just talking to me, or is this real? Is
Yeah,
this an external
yeah,
presence? Yeah, and we all go through that, who have experiences with the paranormal, and we all have this sort of imposter syndrome thing that, no matter how much evidence for yourself personally you experience, like seeing a ghost in your kitchen, or seeing a gray alien like I did, or seeing a large triangle right over your house, even being with other people when these things happen, after time goes by, you look back on it and think, no, really? Did that really happen? You
I
know,
do that all the
it's like you got
time.
to poke
Yeah,
yourself with a pin and make sure you're not dreaming. So,
yeah.
everybody understands that. Everybody goes through it. And I think if you didn't have that going on, um, then you would have something to worry about. If you're not, if you're worried about thinking, "Am I crazy?" Then you're not. That's
Yeah,
an old expression. If you think you're crazy, you're not. The
I
people who are
agree with
crazy
that.
don't think they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
I'd like to find somebody that I could hire to listen to the sound
Right.
and, emphasize the tones because they're repetitious and they're
Mhm.
rather musical, but I can only barely hear them over the static. And, uh, and I know that there's a way to do this with a certain type of machine. And then I would also like to have some of my Orbi videos authenticated. So if you ever hear of anybody that can do that, I would be happy to hire them.
I'm surprised that Lori doesn't know anyone, but we get a fair amount of traffic on this channel, and several thousand people will watch this video, sometimes more.
Uh huh.
It depends, but it only takes one person to hear you and has an interest, that has the capability of analyzing this material, that might reach out to you, and that's my hope. Um, the sound that I hear, and this started to happen back in the 90s, and I woke up. I was already going to Von Smith, and I was having my lifelong experiences with the visitors investigated through hypnosis. I didn't need hypnosis for everything because I remembered. I'm one of those people that remembered the things that happened to me, but I wanted to see if there was more. And then one night I woke up and I heard this sort of droning sound. It almost sounded like a didgeridoo or a machine or something like that, like humming. And it was very distinct. And my late wife was asleep, and I got up and I went all through the house at 3 in the morning trying to locate where the sound was coming from. I never found it. Then I noticed during the daytime I could hear it if it was really quiet. And then when we went on astronomy parties way up into the mountains in the middle of nowhere in a forest with our telescopes, I would walk into the forest all by myself, which was a very stupid thing to do because there were bears and everything else up there. In the night, I'd walk deep into the forest away from everybody else and sit there, and I could hear it. It was like almost the sound of the planet being alive, and it changes. Sometimes it's a droning didgeridoo sound, deep. And other times it'll get higher. Woo, 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 woo. It does all these different tone changes. And I've only had a few people come over to my house and stand in silence with me that could hear it. Everyone else couldn't. But as it turned out, those people also had um, experiences in their life, and they could hear it. Does any of this sound familiar to you?
Somewhat, somewhat. Um, Up at the mine that I work for is not far from my house.
Hmm.
Um, I used to, well, that was my office. I had an office up there for years on site. and I abandoned my office and came home to work down here for a variety of reasons, not the least of which were the bears that kept visiting during the daytime.
Oh
And I
boy.
just didn't like the company, so I decided I'm going home.
Big
But
furry
anyway,
company
yeah, yeah, they
with
were
big
pretty
teeth.
noisy. And so, and I wasn't positive they were total friends. So, anyway, inside my inside my attic, the attic is the entrance to a tunnel, and a tunnel actually has two ends, two openings. So, this did not. But anyway, sometimes inside the uh, the tunnel, I would hear deep tones. Now, they were not frightening, they didn't scare me, but
Hmm.
I would hear different tonalities. And I, I'm a miner's daughter, so I grew up with a lot of mining superstitions from the mining company, from the company my dad kept. Miners are very superstitious people. And
Yeah, I can imagine.
oh, they do. They have their Tommy
Yeah.
knockers, and they have a lot of things, and not the least of which am I making fun of any of it. I mean,
Oh no, no, not at
this
all.
is our creed. And but anyway, I often would hear different tones inside the attic, and I just never let it really bother me. Now outside in the forest, I'm pretty. The river's pretty noisy, and unless it's very very low and quiet, kind of like a trickle, then it doesn't overpower me as far as hearing goes. But otherwise, outside the river is noisy. And so
Yeah,
anything of a deep resonance, I would not necessarily hear.
I see. It would be like it's like a white noise almost. It kind of
Yeah, it
masks
is.
everything else.
Yes.
Um, have you been? I'm sure you've been inside some of the mines, right? I mean, it's at some point
Oh,
in
I
your
grew up
life.
inside. Yeah.
So you've been
Oh,
deep
yes.
inside.
Yes. That was
Well,
how I made my living for a number of years.
I very, uh, I wasn't very smart, but me and my friends, when we were up at Lake Folsom, there's a lot of old gold mines there, and they're just open.
Yes.
And I mean, they board them up, and then people take the boards off. And we went pretty deep down inside one. Um, it was pretty scary, but I heard things down there, and
Sure.
we would turn off the flashlight, and there is nothing blacker than being in a cave with a tunnel like that with no light. I mean,
I know.
it's just it's just absolute. But then you hear things. It's like there's something down there. I was never so glad to get back out on the surface because it was dangerous. Because those old mines, well, they were unstable when they were new, let alone you know
Yeah.
after 100 years or whatever it had been. In the ground shifting and everything else, cave-ins happen all the time. But I just wondered if you so you've been into those mines regularly then.
That was my job.
Right.
That was my job. I ran different crews, and oftentimes I would run a metal detector. That was one of the tools that we used, but we drilled and blast, and we had a small operation going, albeit a legitimate one.
Yeah,
Mining is a highly regulated field.
I can see why it's so dangerous.
It is very dangerous, extremely
Yeah.
dangerous, even though um, safety is the main concern. I mean, that's the primo concern is safety for your people, and you want everybody to go home in one piece, healthy every night. And but in the olden days, oh gosh, tunnels could
Yeah,
even be just the width of somebody's shoulders, just enough to squeeze through. Now, of course, we have to adhere to certain dimensions as a good point, but in the olden days, honey, I'd run across. Oh, excuse me, I run a store for so many years. I call everybody honey because I forget their
that's
names.
fine.
But anyway, in the early days, the miners could dig just the wealthy area, just the rich area. They didn't have to go off very far into the country rock. Now we do. We have to make tunnels and adits and drifts. We have to have certain sizes. And before, when long before these regulations came into effect, you could just take the rich part out and not have to spend time or energy digging out the non rich part. which would give
Right.
you more safety. So, oh gosh, no. And this area you were talking about, the mortality rate here, I'm sure, I am sure this property is just loaded. When I first came here as a child, it was all rock piles left from the early day miners. Of course, I've had them smoothed out now because, it's hard to live on a rock pile, but um, these are
Yeah.
all little encampments that were up and down the river that hosted three or four miners each, and they would independently have their own little area to dig in. And it was all extremely dangerous.
Yeah. My God. What about the indigenous inhabitants of that area?
Oh,
I'm
yes,
sure they.
we had the
Yeah.
Maidu here, and I find a lot of times if we get in a sunny area, they were very smart folks, and they would
Yes.
find areas that would stay sunny in the wintertime. And so they were very clever about finding their places for encampment close to fresh water, close to game, and areas where the topography allowed them to get a lot of sun in the wintertime. And so they had to be in the canyons, but they had to find a nice place in the canyons. Usually the canyons are very dark and damp in the wintertime because it doesn't
Yeah.
get much sun. So there's areas. In fact, I'm looking out the window right now. There's areas within an eighth of a mile of me that the sun is on a plateau area. The river had made sort of a nice bend, and it's in a nice flat area, and they would encamp there. And you can find a lot of their broken points. You can find grinding stones because remember I told you we're in the granitics and
Yep.
granite,
Hmm.
and you can find the pestles. Sometimes you'll find a whole set of them, um, and they'll find a glaciated or a smooth boulder of granite, and set the ladies would set on it and grind their corn, or
That's
their
right.
maize or whatever. And so, no, this area along in here was heavily populated because we had a lot of game too, and we
Well,
still do.
you still do have tribes there. Have you ever had a chance to speak to any of these people about the orbs that you've seen? Because I'm sure they would
No,
have something to say about that.
well, we also have the Bigfoot here,
Yeah.
and uh, no, the indigenous folks. There may be a few left in Nevada County that have come down through the generations, but
Hmm.
a lot of times, Steve, they wanted to get away from that history. They were
Yeah.
not happy about it, so to speak. And you go two or three generations, and you're not going to find too many folks that will talk about their background. I know we have some families here that have the indigenous people in their background, but they don't talk about it. They don't, you know, even do any research, unfortunately.
Yeah. I have Blackfoot in my genealogy,
Uh
and
huh.
my grandmother was wait, just I'm seeing her in my mind. I don't think she was full Blackfoot, but she sure looked it, and she was quite a character. And where I spent time with her during the summers over in Marin County before it became so overrun and developed, uh, I used to find um, where the creek was, there were these granite, just granite coming out around the creek, not even like a boulder, just these big like sidings of granite, and in it were you could see where they had the pestles and they were grinding, I guess, probably corn in it.
Corn, maybe
And I used to
acorns.
find arrowheads all the time, and I've just been surrounded by that. And I've had
Yeah,
the fortune of talking to some tribal people, especially when I was in New Mexico in Chaco Canyon. And you bring up UFOs or star people or spirits that glow in the dark to them, and boy, it's just a very natural thing to talk about with those people. And they have amazing insights on that because for thousands of years they've been dealing with these things, and it's quite natural to them. It's not frightening. But they'll tell you a lot, and I'm sure that people. long ago would hear them talk of such things and think that they were just crazy or savages or whatever. But I think that they were talking about some of the very things that you're experiencing on your property and getting on video.
Well, this is what Lori thinks, and
Yeah, she
Lori's
does.
brought some folks here. Pardon?
She does.
Yes, yes, she does. They've asked me quite a bit about the indigenous people, and
Right.
I don't have all that information. I wished I did. Um, Unfortunately, the last full-blooded native individual was found, I think, here, not too far from this area where I am right now, in the 1930s, and he was came into the society, and folks, took him in, and he had been living all by himself. He was probably in his 40s, and I have a story about that. I have the history of
Hmm.
um, that event. And he lived a few years in society, but he was never comfortable and he was never happy. He was used to a different and a freer life, unfortunately. And so, but I would love to know more about it. But getting back to Lori and some of the folks that she's
Yeah.
brought by here, yes, they've asked me about the native folks, and were they here? And yes, they were right here where I'm sitting. And they loved it here. It had everything to sustain them in the wintertime, plus a locality where it was warm and they could get the winter sun to come, to shine on them, and their little encampments didn't suffer quite as much as the ones in the higher country. We're 2,600 feet here, where we still
2,600
get
feet. Yeah.
snow, but we don't get the huge amount like they do, up at 5,000 feet.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was living in Bernie, we got snow too. Not,
Yeah, yeah,
well,
I
it
know
was
Bernie.
pretty heavy at times. Yeah. Yeah. And again, that had all kinds of indigenous peoples, um, artifacts everywhere you looked.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It just gives you an idea of how much bigger of a nation they once had at one
yeah,
time, because there's evidence of them everywhere if you know where to look. And I remember uh, hiking in the forests and finding these little bits of fabric tied to branches on the tree that were quite old. And it was explained to me that those were trails. They marked
yes.
trails through the woods with those fabrics, and they were still there after all these years. It's really
Wow.
something. Yeah. Do you
You know,
look at the stars at night?
yes, I do. We have an area. Uh, as we leave the canyon, we have to go, of course, up,
Hmm.
and up at the very top, I think is about 41 or 42 hundred feet. We have two mountains that have been flattened off, two tops of the
Hmm.
mountains that have been
Hmm.
flattened off, and that was done in the 1930s by a logging company that wanted to dry their fresh cut boards there, and they're actually called the dry yards. That's an old name. The
Oh,
logging company's long since gone. It was a sawmill, and they were located here in Washington, Tahoe Sugar Pines, and so those areas are devoid of any foliage largely, and it's wonderful. I go up there and you can stargaze. I see all sorts of anomalous activities up there.
I was going to
It's
ask you.
amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. It
Yeah,
really
there's
is.
nothing like it. I've been a amateur astronomer all my life, and when I lived in Bernie, that was a pretty high altitude, and the house I stayed in with my grandmother was 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 the main house for the mill that had been there at one time.
Uh
And I
huh.
had this big fireplace in it. It was an amazing thing, and there was all this cleared out area around the house. But if you went out of the backyard, there was a forest right there.
Sure.
um, it was a marvelous place to spend time with, and then the creeks and everything else. So there's just nothing like living in an environment like that. And I wish that more people of our culture would spend more time in nature, uh, at least once a year, or at least at some point in their life where they get away from the city and they make contact with Mother Earth, and that's the best way to do it. And you're so fortunate to live someplace where you can do that. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm surrounded with the forest here. It's going behind me. It's about 12 miles. I'm the last house. There's nobody beyond me. It's all
wow,
forest. Over
wow.
in that direction, it's about 6 miles. Up that way, it's about 4 miles. And there's no houses. I'm it. No street lights. No, oh gosh, there's a butterfly. Uh, no ambient outside lights. Well, I'm
Mhm.
facing a window for the
Yeah.
light to come in. But
If something
no,
shows
I,
up, turn
I
your
it's
camera
dark.
around. Yeah.
Pardon?
They said if something shows up, turn your computer around. We can maybe capture it.
Well, I'll do that and see. It's no, I'm real fortunate. I could never
Yeah.
afford to buy this place, but fortunately, my parents had the foresight to buy it when prices were a lot less than they are now.
Yeah.
Here,
Oh,
I'll,
absolutely. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. How beautiful. That takes me right
now
back
this
to when
was
I was well, it takes me back to when I was living in Bernie. I mean, this is how it was.
well, it's all forest, and now right down here, the early miners had stacked rocks, piles and piles and piles of rocks, and I
Yeah.
had them all leveled. It took me a while, but I had them leveled. And as I told you on my descriptions, I have 3 levels above the river, and the river's taken me out a couple of times. The river gives and the river takes. You
Yeah. So
never
you've
want
been
to.
flooded? You've been
Oh
flooded there?
yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah,
I was flooded here 2 years ago. Our house was in 5 foot of water.
yep. Well, I
So
took
I know what
refuge
that's
in the
like.
second story of. I have a really strong barn that's on a really heavy duty foundation, and the river came up. It was 4 feet on the barn, and I fled upstairs to the second floor, and that's where I spent a night. And the big trees were bashing into the upriver side of the barn where I was, and the whole building was just quaking. But it
Wow.
survived, thank goodness.
Yeah,
And
you did. Well,
but since
Lila,
then, I've had to redo everything.
yeah, we did too. We had the whole place rebuilt. So,
Yeah,
Lila, thank you so much for spending this hour with us and talking about the orbs and your life up there in that beautiful place. We really appreciate it.
my pleasure. This has been fun, a lot
I'm
of
glad
fun, and
you,
I want to invite you and Mary to come for a visit. I know you have an electric vehicle. I have power here, and I
yeah.
have extra places to stay.
Okay.
So you could come and stay by the river and have a great time.
Are dogs welcome?
Absolutely. We've got dogs. My critter's right outside there.
Okay. We just have one. Her name's Nova, little black
Well, we've
lab
got
dog.
3 here. Yeah.
Okay.
No, we're dog
Thank you.
friendly, and
Good.
we're critter friendly. Even bring your kitties if you want to.
We don't have kitties. We just
But
have a
let's
dog.
stay in touch. And if you
Yes.
do find anybody that's interested in looking at some of these videos with an eye to perhaps helping me determine what they are, feel free to pass my name out. I would like to get something done with them before I no longer can, and I'm sure that they would offer some wonderful information if they were investigated by someone who knew what they were talking about.
Yeah, that's what we need. And so hopefully somebody watching this program will contact me and I can put them in touch with you.
I would love that, Steve. Thank you so very, very much.
My pleasure, Lila.